in June. We want to talk a bit about what, public engagement might look like around that plan between now and June. And that's essentially the meat of our meeting. Now, Member Bishop is absent. She did shoot me a note that I wanted to make sure I read out. She said by and large, she supported the changes made to the plan. She had a bit of extra language around social equity, kind of thinking about human dignity in the environment that I can share with you, but certainly I think is consistent with what we have in the plan. And then there were two specific comments she made about adding, I'm trying to find it. So specifically calling out reusable takeaway containers and straws in restaurants, and then adding a new policy around encouraging food scrap composting outside of yard waste seasons, both of which I think are very germane.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. So I think probably the best place to start is if everyone's had a chance to review the changes, if there's still any other points we should discuss.
I didn't see, but I was not looking totally comprehensively. Is there any reference to the county's green infrastructure plan?
The county's green infrastructure policy.
I think they have a plan, so it might be nice just to show that our green infrastructure initiatives dovetail with where the county's going. It's the forest preserve.
Yeah, I've seen it. I think we'll make sure to call it out. So there's the county does have a plan, and it's a pretty good one from a technical perspective, but it's probably not that accessible for like someone looking to put in their houses. So we put a link to, I think it was Minnesota which sounds more technical, but actually it's here's a picture and here's how everything works. So, but we can make sure to call out that there's consistency between those as well.
Yeah,
That
it's
would be
just,
great.
yeah.
And I didn't know, and I've been kind of out of the loop a little bit, but I know there was things about fertilizers and things like that, but there's been so much in the news about pesticides, and I think that we might want to add something about that, because that's going to be a big issue going forward, trying to get some green things for pest control and endangering wildlife and.
Yeah, so one of your goals in there, NS5, Natural Spaces 5, is educate residents on managing lawns and gardens using natural products and low-impact practices that reduce usage of pesticides, fertilizers, and other chemical lawn treatments.
Okay, but it's like for
That
pest
fits
control,
your-
you know, you guys coming in spraying for ants and
Okay.
putting traps for mice and that kind of thing.
I hadn't thought about that.
Part
I hadn't
of
thought
the whole
about that.
ecosystem of,
Right.
beyond bees and,
Yeah,
Yeah.
like owls are dying because they eat the mice, and the mice.
Well, if there's a mouse in my house, it's gone, sorry.
Just use an
About
old-fashioned
natural
trap.
predation.
Yeah, I mean, they're coming
Yes.
up with some natural things for people to use.
So I could bring a hawk in my house and just let them.
again, another small business startup.
Yes.
What about dog waste?
But
Talked about that.
We've talked about it here. I don't think it's in the plan, but again, something that I
I
think
didn't
is.
see it in the,
It's definitely an issue at the beach.
And up on the bluff.
and I was hearing from a particular landscaper that it's more of a problem in the community to the south, where people, when they're walking their dogs, they go over a ravine bridge and just dump the bag.
Oh, you've got to be kidding.
No. So, that's what came to that's why it came to me in my little brain. And then, on page 9, we have a list of what you can recycle and what to send to the landfill, but maybe having what we put in our food scrap program list would be good as well.
Detail.
Glenn, do we know on page 9 about keeping our recycling clean? I recently found out that Lake Forest's contractor says that 25% of their waste recycling stream is contaminated. Do we have any similar statistics? Are we good recyclers
Yeah, I
in
don't
Bluff or
have a
not?
specific statistic from Groot. I would say that 25%'s on the low side of numbers I've heard. So there's plenty of that goes away due to food spoilage or oil or improper mixing. Yours true, I have to confess, I only learned when we were working with Green Minds that apparently those paper coffee cups aren't recyclable, so.
They're
I've been
not?
They're
spoiled.
dirty.
And
They
there's the
have
plastic
the
film in the
plastic
middle.
film in the middle, yeah. At least right now,
We
they're
rinse them
not.
out and put them in. Oops, okay.
Yeah,
Or the
Lessons
box of,
learned.
the Tetra Packs, the boxed water.
Yeah,
There's no recycler in this country, only in Japan. And I don't think we're sending those Tetra Pak boxes over there.
Like what you'd get chicken stock in, those kinds of things.
yeah.
it's like a wax lining that makes it waterproof.
Yeah.
or a plastic
Swilco
lining.
had told me a couple of years ago, they were all excited because they were gonna start recycling those.
Oh, we
Maybe
better
it was-
check.
Change in plans.
Well, it may be, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it was a couple of years ago.
So I never really thought about the upstream, but there's been a lot in the news about where the recycling goes. Do we know where where Swalco sends its recycling?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not too familiar with the whole chain. So it does go to Groot, and my understanding is they do have recycling facilities here in Chicagoland, but I can't tell you the
Okay.
whole.
Because I know some of them were sending them out overseas to be processed.
That's plastic particularly.
And then I saw that there were some communities, because that's not a viable solution, have actually started going back to
Right.
incineration, which is not ideal either. So I just kind of curious, we never asked when Swalco was here what happens after Swalco. I'm just kind of curious, maybe next time they're in, we could discuss what
Maybe
happens.
they'd send
Well,
an email.
Swalco, or would it be more pertinent to ask Groot, since they're the ones who are our contractor?
Sure. I mean, either one. I mean, I imagine Swalco's got to know, but
I don't know, I was just thinking Lake
Would
Bluff
hope.
specific.
Yeah.
about the food scrapping, was it Swalco or someone else that came in that said that that the benefits of food scrapping versus garbage disposal was a toss-up? Was that what I remember
I
hearing?
have to go back to my notes,
Yeah,
but
that
it
was
was close.
for me.
Okay. I think they were both sustainable approaches, so,
That's how I
Usually-
recall it too,
yeah.
that, you know, either down the drain and
Chewed up.
chewed up is a fair option, and, you know, obviously throwing it into and,
You might want to ask the water treatment people, they
Yeah.
hate disposals.
Yeah, I remember them coming in and saying it was
Right,
a
but
better option.
that may be the waste people saying that,
Okay.
the water treatment people, unless processes have improved or there's new technology,
Okay.
that could be a challenge.
All right. Any other comments? I mean, this is a living document, this is just not gonna be it. So. And after this, it goes to the village board?
Sure, so what we would say is, we've held off on a few things until we know that you're comfortable with the product as it looks. And that's where we're hoping to get today,
Sure.
subject to a few amendments.
No,
So one would be just graphic design, getting it from this document to something a bit more colorful. Another would be, we've had this idea of a microsite where we want to look into doing something like that, something that's a bit more direct, separate from the village website.
sure,
And then some public engagement, public outreach,
yes.
which would be a good dovetail into the next section if we'd like to.
Okay,
okay.
So as far as public outreach goes, our thinking is, as staff, this isn't as simple necessarily as the landscape plan. There's no pretty pictures. There's no, shared grievances, if you would, among the village about electric poles and things. But neither is it terribly complex. We're not talking about really heavy-duty subjects in a lot of this. It's things people can grasp.
Right.
So what we're looking at is probably, we'll take a week to do these final changes that we've talked about here. Kind of the next 3 weeks going through May between now and the SEC's June meeting, we'll probably highlight 2 topics a week in the village's e-newsletter perhaps.
Okay.
Saying, hey, there's a sustainability plan coming out. We're talking about, this week we're talking about recycling and natural spaces. Next week we're talking about light pollution and energy conservation. Trying to keep it at a manageable amount,
Yeah.
try to invite people's interest. Probably still see mostly a written response type of feedback like we saw with the landscape plan, but we'll still advertise sort of your next meeting as a public meeting about it too. We'll have a slide deck there, we'll walk through it if there's anyone from the public present, and you'll make a recommendation.
Okay.
Okay.
If that sounds like a plan.
Great.
And
Sounds good.
Okay.
All right. Should we move on to the next agenda item, or do you need a motion or anything?
No
Okay.
motion
Okay,
yet. Again, if there's no objections, again, we'll start the wheels moving on those things we discussed.
Okay.
Looks great.
Good.
okay. Thanks for all the effort on this. It's really grown, and
Yep.
it's a nice document. Okay, village staff report on meeting dates.
Sure, so we've had a few months now with the revised first Monday meeting date. We wanted to make sure that this was working for everybody, that this seems like a stable time to hold these meetings going forward.
Seems like we're getting good turnout, generally. Okay,
Okay.
Still bad for me, but
well, but you're turning
I
out.
make it work, yeah.
Thank you.
Every other meeting or so.
And then as a second staff report, I would say, on the 176 corridor, we haven't engaged the services of Tesca and Cliff Miller again to start their second round of work on that program, but we've had surveyors out there, I think 2 weeks ago, and so they're finishing up sort of the base data that'll be necessary for some of that actual landscape design in that area. So, still progress.
Okay. Yeah, has Open Land started doing any work out there, or are they still kind of sitting, waiting for the final?
Yeah, I haven't heard anything from
Okay.
them on that front.
Okay.
So we were communicating a bit there when the playbook was adopted, and I'm not sure where it's going.
Well, you have to have a land survey, you have to have the boundaries and all the topos and everything before you can finish the landscapes plan, so, okay,
Yeah,
all right,
that would conclude my report.
okay. Member reports, anything anyone wants to share, news items, information?
I would like to share something.
Okay,
I found out that there is a organization called Urban Chicken Rental, sorry, .com. And while this may seem a little far-fetched and, or as Glenn said, maybe economically not viable, but it does allow people to sort of have a toe into the chicken world. They'll drop off the chicken house coop and 5 chickens, and they will pick them up at the end of your contracted amount of time. And don't look at me like that, Brian. Actually, my neighbor and I are thinking this would be a great thing to do because we don't have to then be fully responsible for.
I don't know, renting to outside strange chickens coming into our neighborhood. What are they gonna do to our neighborhoods?
Yeah, well, oh gosh. It's only 5 eggs a week.
A week
5 eggs a week?
I think,
or a
oh,
day?
maybe it was a day. I don't remember now.
You know where I live, right?
Yeah,
So if someone were to be interested in pursuing rental chickens, I assume they would have to come through the village first to apply
Absolutely.
for. Okay.
the chickens lay about 5 eggs per week,
Wow.
okay? Until they get going.
That's true.
And
They're mental, they're not as
various
comfortable.
varieties that lay different colored eggs, blue, green, brown, and white. They eat garden and chicken scraps and are fed and watered once a day. Okay? So,
When you say fed and watered, someone does that?
no, you do that.
Those are like a deluxe,
Valet.
is there a deluxe rental?
There could be. I mean, you
Okay.
still have to have the food
Yeah, interesting.
for them, but then it's not a commitment. a real commitment. You could find out if it's a good thing. And presumably, there's a replacement in case your chickens
Go astray.
goes, yeah, exactly.
Are there any
Fly the
Yelp
coop.
reviews of them, or do people like them?
Apparently, Eloa is going to go into this because we're only allowed to have a pilot program at Eloa Farm. So we're
Cool,
going to see how that goes.
Excellent.
cool. If it goes well at Eloa, it's something we could tweet or post or, I don't know, something to offer.
Cluck about.
Cluck about. Oh, goodness.
So easy. Excellent.
Cool.
I like
Good
it.
find.
Excellent. If you
So-
think that's my worst pun, I want you to know, if you grab a copy of the Lake Forest Leader and look at the Arbor Day press release from last week,
Uh-oh.
it's on topic.
Good time.
Some people think trees
Did you go out on a
arboring
limb?
are boring.
Okay.
All right, any other?
I have a note. This Wednesday, the League of Women Voters is hosting a public forum. We're addressing stormwater issues in the community. So we've invited Lake Bluff and Lake Forest folks in. We called it "It's Raining, It's Flooding." It seems so topical lately. But we're looking forward to it. It's Wednesday at 7 o'clock at Dickinson Hall. We've got Mike Warner from Lake County Stormwater Management, Mike Thomas from the City of Lake Forest. Jeff Hansen from Lake Bluff is unable to attend, unfortunately, with a last-minute issue, and then Ryan London from Lake Forest Open Lands. So it should be a very good evening, and we're looking forward to nice attendance as well. Everybody's invited.
Terrific.
Yeah, there was just a week or two ago, there was something about with flooding and minimizing flooding at your residence.
Yes.
Yeah, and did anyone go to that?
No, and I have not seen a report back. We had a couple of people from our group who were also
Okay.
interested, because this is a very similar, you know,
Who
somewhat what will.
hosted that one?
I want to say Open Lands was there.
I think Open Lands was there, and I think it fell under the guise of Sandy Hart.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll dovetail with some of that and talk about what we can do in our own spaces, but then look at some of the larger issues. But certainly our own property is a good place to start
Yeah.
and give us some agency in this.
I know before, when I was on the board, and this is not, there's a difference between resiliency and sustainable. So this is more resiliency. George Russell had come up with a document. We had an area in town that was prone to flooding, and it was like things you could do around your house. And there were simple things like, putting covers on your window wells, the basement, just so water would not collect in there. Things of that nature that I know were a practical standpoint. I don't know if we ever put those on the website or anything, but they were good, just general topics as I get ready to replace my battery backup system in my house.
I'm sorry.
'Tis the season.
No, I haven't had any flooding, it's just, it's time,
It's time.
it's old.
There's also, on May 9th, at 9, from 9:30 till 11:30, a landscaping without chemicals roundtable at Eloa.
Perfect.
So they're going to have, I think, David Gorder from the composting and a landscaper. Anyways, and practical tips and eliminating chemicals, so.
Do we have any idea what % of Lake Bluff residents use the sort of ChemLawn service? We don't have a way to know that, do we? In my neighborhood, it's almost everybody.
Really?
I'd say it's a high.
And for us, it all feeds in, I'm in the Bath and Tennis Club, so it all feeds into that wetland, that Lake Bluff Open Lands wetland. But it's literally, I think there's 3 of us maybe out of, I don't know, Marina, how many are back there that don't do it?
Well, if I could jump in, just mingle the co-chair's report. The village board had been presented a discussion, I guess, started by Green Minds about the gas-powered weed whackers and blowers and things, the blowers. And one of the, I wrote to Kathy, one of the things I know that the board has talked about for a while was whether or not we should register landscape, they'd have permit for landscape companies to work in town. And one of the ideas I had was that if we did that, we'd have a better idea of who's coming in town, but we could also issue standard permits and green permits. If, you know, let's say, and I think it should be broken down in terms of small businesses versus large businesses, because I don't want to make the guys who, you know, got two guys pay $1,500 a year, because they're not going to do it.
Right.
But small businesses, local businesses could get discounts, but I think there's an option there to make the carrot and stick approach, where it's like, it's $1,000 a year, or maybe it's zero if you use electric powered machines or low emissions, or you use organic methods or treatment systems. So I think it's still an option for us in the future to, I know we're not generally big on regulations and stuff like that, but I think it would help us get a better idea of who's coming in, like even ChemLawn.
I do think Mariani switched to all electric. At least they
Oh, did they?
said to this city of Lake Forest that they were going to use electric at Forest Park.
Oh.
So it would seem ridiculous that you would only use it there and not,
Right.
but I'm happy to confirm that.
Yeah, could you?
I know that they said that they would do that at Forest Park.
Yeah,
so.
the battery technology has gotten so much better. I know that I've been looking at an electric mower, and it's just gotten so much better. The batteries have gotten more powerful, easier to recharge, the prices have come down.
I don't even need one.
I know. I live on a hill. But that same technology, the same battery, works also in the snow blowers.
Yep.
So, I mean, it's just a plug and a play between the systems, so. And I don't see why it couldn't work with leaf blowers and weed whackers as well, so. All right, anything else?
Just one last note, I would say, so for the last couple of weeks, we've advertised the Iowa Farm event in the Village newsletter, as well as, there's a native plant sale this Saturday as well. So if you have, things like that that come to your attention, you're always welcome to send them my way. We're happy to try to give those press, as and.
When's our local plant sale? It's right around Mother's Day, isn't it? The one
Yeah.
we have at the gazebo?
This is
That
the,
actually,
Are you
This is
thinking of
Lake
the
County.
Forest Preserve?
Yeah, the Forest Preserve.
At Independence
Oh,
Grove.
yeah,
Yeah,
okay,
doesn't
yeah.
do the one here anymore.
No? Did they stop? Oh,
hasn't happened since I've been here, so.
Yeah, it's been a
Wow.
few years now.
time flies. Okay. All right, can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye. Wow,
Wow, that was short.
That was,
All right.
that was
record. That was a record.
a lot to do tonight.